What a privilege it is to be down here. The Ligier JS17 kicks things off the Rothmans March from 1982. Working our way down, I see Andy Willis there in the Ferrari 312 T4 of 1979. A car that we've seen Rob Hall in before. It's a World Championship winning Formula One car, ladies and gents, driven in period by Jody Scheckter and Gilles Villeneuve. The Ranyo Nordica ski equipment Arrows, raced of course in period by Mark Seurer. And alongside him, the ever-genial Emanuele Pirro, who absolutely loves this event, and he is in a Alpha 179. I beg his pardon, it's not Emanuele, he's got a very similar helmet. The Exian Lammers Samsung Shadow, what a fantastic livery. We don't see liveries like this in Formula One anymore, do we? And then a quartet of wonderful John Blair Special Lotuses from the classic Team Lotus Equipe up in Norfolk. We have 77, 79s and the absolutely unique 88, the twin chassis car that was banned in 1981 from the genius of Colin Chapman. The ex-Mario Andretti, Ronnie Peterson Lotus 79, a Grand Prix winner, a World Championship winning car. But doesn't that look, to all intents and purposes, like the great Mario Andretti at the wheel of that one? Like the earlier Lotus 78, these cars resplendent in their original John Blair Special livery. And the wonderful Saudia Williams, the FW07 Cosworth DFB powered car, ex-Alan Jones, another World Championship winning car. The Warsteiner Arrows, the number 35 machine. Look out for these iconic Grand Prix cars about to make their way out onto the grid for their demonstration. Enjoy this, ladies and gentlemen. It will be utterly magnificent.
I think Henry held it together very well down there. I know how much these cars mean for him.
Shaking with fever. We've got 33 of these ground effect F1 cars, so we're in two parts for the demo run.
Mario Andretti look-alike, isn't it, in the Lotus 79, the Black Beauty.
Feels painted to the road.
Oh, it's fantastic.
But the first car out around the circuit, it just makes the sound that only a Ferrari can make, and that's Andrew Willis on board the 312 T5. Oh, dearie me, already. The first car's gone past, and I'm feeling quite weepy.
Andy from Hall and Hall. He's driven this car at the Festival of Speed on the hill climb course.
In historic F1, they're not allowed to run skirts, am I right? But
in the racing championship, yeah, you've got to have a 40 mil ride height. But you can see they've got skirts on these cars now. Just, in fact, it's not touching the ground, but it's not going quickly yet. So it's one of the most beautiful of Formula One cars. Livery helped, of course, didn't it? But here's Andy Willis with the Ferrari flat 12 engine,
which had its disadvantages because, of course, it was a wide engine, which meant that the side pods, the tunnels, had to be a bit narrower, or the inside of them, so not as much ground effect as the full ground effect Lotuses.
And it has to be said, looking at that 312 T5, that even its mother couldn't have described it as beautiful. From the front end, it is an extraordinary sort of melange of shapes just to try and get the downforce.
Probably quite thirsty as well, I would have thought.
So Bruce, shut your eyes and just listen to the noise.
I'm prepared to do anything to keep the fever going, and yes, quite so. That flat 12 coming past. But it was a time of such exploration in Formula One. Once ground effects had been harnessed for the first time, it was catch-up, and of course Lotus did such a good job with the Lotus 78 to conceal why they were so effective, and by the time the 79 was built, the others were still scratching. They thought Lotus had a completely different advantage, and then some teams caught up far faster than others, and McLaren famously really struggled to keep in the mix.
Interesting to read what Clive Chapman said about the 79. It won everything, it was a lovely car, but actually it didn't have a stiff enough monocoque, it flexed a bit, and the FW07 Williams effectively was a 79 with all the mistakes dialed out of it.
Yes, and then Gerard Ducarouge got it so right with his Ligier that stormed to pole with Jacques Lafitte at the 2 opening Grand Prix one year.
Yeah, the JS 1517s were fantastic with a great series of cars. There is a Williams 07. Mike Wrigley's car. It's a 7B. Similar to the car Alan Jones ran, I think, 3 separate FW07Bs in the 1980 season when he won the World Championship. Alan Jones, a 10-time Grand Prix winner, won half of them in that season alone.
By which time the V8 Cosworth engine was about in its 12th year, wasn't it?
67 they kicked off, wasn't it? So it's, yes, they've been running since 67. This was 1980. Looks a piece, doesn't it? It looks very well balanced as a car, and it was pretty strong, although they made the FW08s stronger. Tyrrell ahead of it is a sort of a Lotus 79-esque design as well. In fact, one of the Italian model makers, I think it was Barago, made Tyrrell models using the same moulds as the Lotus, just painted it blue.
Now, yeah, that's the way to go, isn't it? But one of the most interesting cars, of course, almost the most short-lived, was the Lotus 88B on screen at the moment. And Colin Chapman was determined to iron out the problems. There was so little suspension movement, the drivers were getting shaken around. So he put one chassis effectively for the car, another for the bodywork. And as the cars went faster, the bodywork pushed itself down onto the track. So the car was absolutely legal in the pit lane, but rather against the spirit went out on the track. So not all of Colin Chapman's ideas got to really go out and work. But as you can see, almost no wings on that car, just the wing at the back, and the outer section is the bit that gets pushed down at speed. Very,
very odd sensation. I've driven one at Donington Park, and when you back off the chicane, you go through chicane pretty slowly. The top chassis, if you like, comes up and takes the wing mirrors with it. And as soon as you come out of the accelerator again, it seals itself back to the floor, comes down little biro springs, and it really is the most odd thing. But a great experience to have driven one.
But those were the days when the rule book wasn't as restrictive as it is nowadays. Nowadays, pretty much all the cars look alike.
But Colin Chapman was so furious after they got kicked out of the US Grand Prix at Long Beach. He famously sent a note to the FIA saying, "I'm off now on the way home to go to Cape Canaveral to see the space shuttle man trying to achieve something."
All we need here, Bruce, now is the Brabham fan car.
Yes, the Brabham fan car from the Swedish Grand Prix, and all the other spoofs that took place in the paddock. I think there's a photo in Autocourse that year of a dustbin lid attached by duct tape to the back of the McLaren, pretending that they too had an advantage, but sadly they didn't.
Swedish Grand Prix threw up some anomalies, didn't it? The year that the six-wheel Tyrrells won, they were 1 and 2 there, weren't they? With Scheckter and Depaille.
That was the extraordinary thing, that they just pulled out, but it's also understood what a peculiar circuit. The start-finish line and the pits at different parts of the circuit, just and so bumpy, and the slightly banked corners, and a really peculiar place, but it has the OK Corral alongside, doesn't it? The chap who founded the circuit quite fancied walking around with a holster and guns in it, so it was really a strange melange out in the woods there. The sound of all these cars with DFVs, I know they're very different to the Ferrari, but they're just, it's like it really is going back to one's childhood. And it was just, wasn't it fantastic that some of the teams that got to make their name in Formula One did it specifically because that engine gave them the capability to do so.
That's right. I will always remember that first win, Jim Clark debuting the Lotus 49 at Zandvoort Dutch Grand Prix in 1967. My 9th birthday became very memorable for that very reason.
Is that Clive Chapman driving the 88?
Well, he's listed as being the driver, but I'm afraid I can't tell you. One thing that is just so great about that period of Formula One, of course, it was a time of massive experimentation, as though the aerodynamicists, some of them didn't really have that as a name, they were just the engineer. And the sounds, the shapes, but look at the Alfa Romeo up on your screen, such a different looking beast. And don't forget that when they went to the North American Grand Prix, Bruno Giacomelli really made that work. And I've almost never felt as sad for someone when he led early on and pulled off and the car broke yet again. But on its day, very, very quick indeed, that Alfa Romeo 179.
Chris Locke in the Lotus 79, American lawyer, doing his Mario Andretti impression. Chris also raced 77 and other Lotuses with Classic Team Lotus, with a fantastic cross-section of team production here this weekend. A lot of period mechanics and engineers there as well, including Bob Dance, who was one of Jimmy Clark's mechanics back in the early 1960s. Chris Dinage, who was at the team in this era of JPS cars. Arrows A1B there. And the gold Warsteiner beer livery.
Of course, just after the schism with Shadows, so much similarity and a bit of a harum-scarum start to the season. They had to sort of redesign because of intellectual property elements, but anyhow, that got behind them very, very quickly indeed. And I love looking at the Warsteiner livery. In fact, I prefer it if it has less black on it and goes for more golds than it did on certain other designs, but very tidy-looking car.
Drove one of those on the streets of Birmingham in one of Martin Hone's demonstrations, which was an interesting experience as well. Formula One car on the road in the middle of a city.
I don't think at the time, even though it took him so long to make that happen, that Martin Hone realised how historic it was, what he was doing, getting cars out onto the streets. And of course, it led on eventually to the Birmingham Super Prix, but a lovely man who pushed very, very hard indeed to get what he wanted.
Amazing what Ken Tyrrell achieved on relatively limited budget. Nice, simple cars.
Two Lotus 78s here this weekend. That's Doc Dinage in this manche of cars.
Checkered flag out for this lot, but don't worry, there's another lot coming out pretty soon.
The newer ones.
Candy Tyrrell there.
In fact, looking down the entry list, no, there's split. It's not according to older or newer. We're going to have a mixture of both in both halves of this wonderful ground effect F1 car demo.
So, Marcus, when they're tested here in period, lap time...
Well, I can only tell you what I saw, and that was Nelson Piquet in a BT49 Brabham, 103.76, 136 miles an hour. Hector Abaque was 11 seconds slower on the same day, but I think he was looking at the sides, whereas Nelson had been here many, many times with Formula 3 cars.
103, that's just done, isn't it?
And they probably went quicker, so I picked a random selection of laps through the day.
Did they have a chicane?
Yes.
They did?
Yes. That's Sid Hoole with the M29 McLaren. McLaren's fortunes had faded by the time that came along. But all the late 820s and into the 30s were not terribly successful. Then they hit on the idea of the MP4 carbon fibre cars, which
John Barnett
was the thing.
Yes, there was the changing of the chain of command there as well, wasn't it? Ron Dennis taking over with from Project 4, more Marlboro money, and Teddy Mayer standing down. It was a changing of the guard.
They spent it well, though, didn't they?
Didn't they just?
The big budget came along. Are we liking to think that history repeated itself, wouldn't they?
Yes, wouldn't they just?
Yes, they would. Fittipaldi developed Wilson, or developed the team. There's the pretty Brabham.
Yeah, that is a BT49. That's Joaquin Falk. Another of the Alfa Romeos. That's the 182B of Thomas Steinke.
Yeah, Bruce, the Warsteiner was slightly more gold and less black.
I'm glad people listen.
Yes, that's Mark Davis's one, I think. That's the A3.
Interesting contrast there with the 78 and the 79 Lotus.
Katsu Kubota in the Lotus 78 there. We've got a Lotus in the Essex Petroleum colours there, David Team. Andy Wolf's Tyrrell. Andy Wolf, last year's FI Masters champion, has reconfigured the Tyrrell in the ground effect spec for this season. There's Katsu Kubota. He won't stint on the he won't stint on the revs. He never does. His Lotus 78. That's the Williams FW08 there. Rob Hall in the Ligier.
Is that with the V12?
That's the Ligier Matra, isn't it? JS17.
That sings a lovely song.
It certainly does. Tremendous driver, Rob Hall, preparer as well. Makes a beautiful song.
What I like sitting here at St Mary's, I possibly could hear the Ligier Matra without cans on, but I can hear it through your commentary box window as it comes past you. So that's
fantastic.
Borrowing your sound, if you don't mind. Oh, unfortunately, we've got a car going rather slowly out of Ford Water down the hill. I can't pick out which it is. Is it one of the marches as it comes downhill? I'll let you know shortly. But everyone else going very well indeed, and certainly that Ligier with Rob Hall on board, flying around the circuit. Oh, what a sound it makes as the revs rise with the lap. And the car going slowly was the Denim. The Denim liveried number 32, Osella. Frank Lyons hoping to coax some life into that. What a gaggle of cars on the start-finish straight. And look, you can identify cars in different colours. Isn't that handy? Not just for commentators, but for fans as well. And certainly that bright yellow Fittipaldi standing out at the front. Ollie Hancock driving that.
Three abreast in the background with the Lotus 81 in among them. That's the Essex car of Andrew Beaumont.
Sorry, I gave you the wrong Fittipaldi there. That's the Lynch and Pickering car, the F8, not the F5A. Sorry, not Ollie Hancock one.
He has an F5A, doesn't he?
Yes. Much sharper design. It's a bit more sort of blobby, if you will, the F8. This is in the middle of your shot there. Number 47 is the Skull liveried one. That's not the Hancock car.
Got a cast that must have spun down to my left. One of the McLarens. That's Bobby Verdon Rowe in the MP41, who was parked at 45 degrees to his intended line of travel.
Well, he wouldn't expect that. He knows that car very well indeed. He's raced it for a number of years
won
now.
the FIA
Championship
in it. The car crawling through the chicane. Is that?
It could be the Osella that went really slowly past me. Number 32.
Yes,
Frank
it could
Lyons.
well be. Yes, it is the Denim Osella, one of the FA1s. They worked their way through the alphabet with the Osellas until they even launched a car called the FA1L, which was unfathomable, but accurate. Yes, indeed.
The lovely little Brabham BT49.
It just looks so slender, doesn't it?
Yeah, that is an absolutely gorgeous Gordon Murray designed car.
That's a Gordon Murray design. Lovely.
And the detailing on this car is just sensational.
Yeah, I mean, it would look sleek in any colour scheme, but white with the navy blue is so super sharp. It just emphasises the brilliance of Murray's design. And clearly Nelson Piquet rather liked the car too, and yielded 3 titles in 3 years. 2 titles in 3 years, sorry.
Andy Wolff's denim livery Tyrrell, running with front wings to compensate for the lack of skirts, etc.
Who drove that Imperial?
So Alboreto and co wouldn't have been
Slim
Kelly
Ballgood,
Alboreto, but I think so, yes.
But what was obvious in those days was just how hard they were having to try. As the rules kept on changing to outlaw ground effects, they had to not quite start all over again, not unlearn things, they just had to find different solutions to the problems. And they kept on doing it. Some teams rather better than others, but then, of course, the whole ballpark changed with the MP41 McLaren, which was launched the same year, the MP4, as the Lotus like to point out, the 88B also had a carbon chassis.
That's Tommy Dreelan on your screen with the FW08 Williams of the Keke Rosberg era. Gorgeous. And running strongly, sounding good. Noise of the DFE engine telegraphed differently according to the exhaust positioning, and a lot of them angled up under the wing at the back. ICI Newsweek March goes through the 821 on your screen, one of the Tyrrells.
What is absolutely clear, the majority of these drivers know their cars very well, and they're only too happy to give quite a few revs out around the circuit. This is a high-speed demo.
That's Loic Demant in the Tyrrell 010, Belgian driver, who won had a lot of class victories last year in the FIA Masters Championship, but couldn't quite catch Andy Wolff for the overall victory in the post-70 age category. Alfa Romeo Fittipaldi. Alfa Romeo not on a full complement of cylinders. Tyrrell, McLaren and Brabham all together there. The McLaren MP4 of MP41 of Bobby Verden-Rowe, and Joaquin Falk, the Catalan industrialist.
Haven't been keeping a watch on the cars, Marcus, but Rob Hall is absolutely flying in that Ligier, the JS17. Just look, the other cars seem quite quick, and he's just caught them up as if they were not quite standing still, but it's just easy for him.
Katsu Kubota won't be hanging about, but at the end of the day, there he is with his Japanese livery on his crash helmet. Worth popping a clock on Rob Hall and Ligier there. Doug Nye standing in the box. I can guess little boy with his stopwatch going. Old habits die hard.
And with the McLaren MP41, glad to see Bobby Verden-Rowe has got that going again. It does make the cars from the early ground effect years look really rather primitive with the way it's built, and obviously what went off the back of that. And for McLaren, they were rich years indeed. Times are changing fast, but they pushed technology forward. They embraced aerospace technology to the next level, and certainly all the carbon fibre work they did was enormous step forward for motor racing.
Yes, they'll certainly be chasing tyre temperature. It's come up with those that are trying a little harder. It's a bit of a test session for Andy Wolff on your screen with the with the Tyrrell reconfigured like this, because I don't think he's done any driving with it at all.
Yes, the Tyrrell 011, a big change in shape from the Tyrrells that went before it, but it didn't really bring the team back to the heady heights. They were never the same after Jackie Stewart left at the end of 1973. There were flashes of genius with Patrick Depailler et co, but unfortunately their great days by then were behind them. And the checkered flag is out. So the second part of the Formula One, the ground effect Formula One high-speed demo, is coming to a conclusion. Great to see those two batches of cars out there looking brilliantly, going very well, sounding fantastic. But one that wasn't going brilliantly the whole way, unfortunately, was the Rothmans March that had been limping for the last lap and a half and didn't quite limp far enough.
Alfa Romeo on 11 cylinders coming into the pits. Loic Demar was certainly pushing in his Tyrrell. Kubota and Hall screen through together. Lotus 78 and Ligier Matra JS17.
So those of us of a certain age will all have particular favourites in the cars, the ground effect Formula One cars that were out there in those two sessions. I can't really tell you which mine is, because I kept moving from year to year, but it was at such an exciting time in Formula One.
I'd find it difficult to choose, I think, between a Lotus 79 and the Brabham Booty 49.
I'm sort of with you there.
Stunning.
So as Tommy Dreelan brings the FW8 Williams background in, you can see the Celtic signs on the side of his helmet, going back to the pits. I've decided actually the Lotus 78 gets my vote because it was groundbreaking, and actually I prefer its appearance to the 79. But I'm sure everybody out on the circuit will have their own decision as to which of these cars they like the most in their fantasy garage.
Yeah, so subjective, isn't it? And rightly so. I think it's wonderful. If you all like the same thing, it'd be a pretty sad world. Ligier Matra really does sound distinctive out there, and certainly when driven hard goes very, very well indeed. I like the DFV powered JS15 17s, no, JS11 15s, sorry, JS11 15s, Ducarouge design car, wonderful. Takes you back to the days of Jacques Lafitte and Didier Pironi.
I mean, I've been insulted by Alan Menu. I've been strangled by Ricardo Rydell.
Very grunty Nissan engine in the back, as we heard down there on the start line.